Good afternoon, everyone. I am Erica Young, the Director of Housing Access and Affordability here at the Lincoln Institute of Land Policy. On behalf of the Institute and the Innovations in Manufactured and Modular Housing, or I'm Home Network, I'm really glad to welcome you to today's webinar, What Holds It All Together? Installation of Offsite Housing, the Chassis, and Housing Outcomes. We have a fantastic group of experts with us today and a room full of engaged people, practitioners, advocates, policymakers, and we're expecting around 130 to 140 of you. So thank you so much for being here. For those who are newer to our network, the Innovations in Manufactured Housing is a national initiative anchored at the Lincoln Institute, and we work to advance factory-built housing as a scalable, high-quality pathway to homeownership and community stability. Manufactured housing is already one of the most important and underutilized tools for expanding the access to affordable, energy-efficient homes in this country. And our network continues to grow in reach, sophistication, and influence. With working groups on to advance zoning and titling, energy performance, modular integration, land tenure innovation, and to discuss issues around using manufactured and factory built as a way to expand on our housing supply. Um, Today's conversation sits at the intersection of almost all of this because installation is foundational to how manufactured and modular homes perform, how they're financed for manufactured homes, and how they're accepted in communities. Why installation and why now? Well, it's what holds everything together, literally and figuratively. How a home is set on a foundation for manufactured homes, how chassis interact with the site, and how those decisions ripple out into zoning, financing, appraisal, and long-term resilience. These are questions that really get the attention that they deserve. A key issue at the center of current policy debate is the permanent chassis or removal of that chassis. The steel undercarriage that has defined the HUD Code manufactured home since its start in 1976. The Lincoln Institute has been closely tracking policy discussions around making the chassis optional, a change that could fundamentally reshape how manufactured homes are sited, financed, and perceived. So we'll be touching on the policy status of chassis removal today throughout the discussion, and we'll be publishing a blog post. Actually, it's already up on this topic. So if you get a chance to pop over after this, we have a blog posting on what is the chassis, what does the removal mean? So a couple of ground rules for housekeeping. Today's session is being recorded and will be made available after the event. Use the QA box to submit questions at any time, and we'll take them in the order received during our Q&A session at the end. Chat will be turned off for attendees today. We will share links and resources in the chat as we go. And before we hear from our panelists, we'd like to take a quick pulse of the room. This will help us make sure the conversation is as relevant as possible to who's here today. There's our poll. So that's going to be up for about a minute. And meanwhile, while those results come in, let me overview today's webinar and what to expect for the next hour. Here's how we'll spend our time. Each of our three panelists will give approximately a 7 to 8 minute presentation on their organization and approach to installation, including some time-lapse video to show the process in action. And then I'm going to lead a moderated discussion to go deeper on the themes and tensions across their perspective. And we'll close with the Q&As. Our goal today is to demystify the installation process for a broad audience and not to overwhelm anybody. We're pitching the conversation at a mid-level technical depth with room to go further in Q&A. So while you're all filling out the poll, let me do the introductions of our guests. I'm so pleased to introduce three leaders who bring distinct and complementary expertise to today's conversation. Each will speak, as I mentioned earlier, for about 8 minutes. First, Andrew Bryant. Andrew's the business development manager of the Cross Mod initiative at Clayton and brings a broad systems perspective to manufactured and modular housing, supporting builder, developers, and navigating the full diversity of housing options. From crane placements to traditional HUD sets, Andrew's work reflects the remarkable geographic and methodological range of how homes are installed across this country. Andrew's time lapse will give us a window into that diversity. So, Andrew, the floor is yours.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for the opportunity. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. So thank you so much, Andrew Bryant, Business Development Manager with Clayton for specifically the CrossMod initiative. And today we're going to talk about installs, more specifically CrossMod homes and how their installs are important and some of the different methods used. So a little bit about Clayton. We've been around 70 years this year, always focused on opening doors to a better life and helping people from all walks of life achieve their ideal home. We build, we set, and sell all sorts of homes, including modern manufactured homes, part models, modular. We also are in the site-built world. We have builders across the country that do site-built homes, again, focusing on that, opening doors to a better life, finding the ideal home for any family, no matter their budget. And then really blurring the lines of offsite and onsite construction because we know that the attainable housing deficit continues to grow. And really to make a splash, you've got to combine. There's got to be innovation. We can't remain static. So in the middle there, you'll see hybrid modular and cross-mod homes. So going to focus on cross-mod homes today. What is a cross-mod home? It actually stands for crossover modern. That is an industry term. This new form of housing, new home type, has been around since 2018, really with the premise that combining the efficiency, speed, and affordability with offsite construction with the fit, finish, and design of on-site construction. What that's going to do is going to help more families looking for that type of home. Built to these standards, these homes look, perform, appraise, and finance on par with the site-built market. Both Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac have created 30-year conventional loan programs if these homes are built to these specifications. So we're seeing tremendous growth in this market throughout the country, and definitely excited to share some of that with you today. So Clayton, as an enterprise, we have 41 home building facilities, offsite construction across the country, 14 of which build our cross-mod homes. That the reason being they are full drywall facilities. That is one of the qualifications that is required for cross-mod. But you can see there everywhere from Pennsylvania, Minnesota, the Southeast, all over the West Coast. So we've got coverage in any state because we're approached by developers, builders, retailers, and all municipalities, knowing that, you know, it's not your traditional modern manufactured home buyer that needs their homes, because we've been in that space. Our industry's been in that space for some time. This is really that missing middle. These are the families that are looking for their first time home. They're looking on the MLS. And again, the innovation, the blend of offsite and onsite construction is really the answer to that attainable price point. So how are cross mods set? The majority of cross mods are crane set, similar to modular housing. You see that in scalable developments. A good reputable set crew can set 3 to 5 homes in a day using that crane. Perfect for urban infill. The picture there you see is actually in downtown Atlanta. That home was one of the first 2 HUD-coded homes allowed in the city limits of Atlanta. So definitely some zoning wins there. Then next to that, you see roller set. Again, these homes are put on permanent mortared masonry or poured concrete foundations. So a roller set is another way to achieve that. Those are great for single site solutions. The roller set method is really prevalent in the Midwest and the West Coast. But again, if you're dealing with a scalable development, 99.9% of the time, you're going to see these cross mods set via crane. And then on the far right, your traditional sets. So really, this is dependent on the perfect topography. So if you look to the right of that picture, there are 2 areas of the foundation where that mortared CMU block was left off. Each half of that home was actually transported into the foundation via translift and then set down on that seal plate foundation. But again, topography dependent, you've got to have a flat lot. We've got to have enough room for the machinery there, but definitely worth mentioning. We mentioned permanent foundations. That is a requirement on cross-mod homes. Depending on where you are in the country, you're going to see some different methods that meet HUD's permanent foundation guide for manufactured housing. Mortared CMU block, all have concrete footers, perimeter load bearing. Mortared CMU is the most common in the Southeast and the East Coast. You travel west, right when you get to Missouri and Kansas, you're going to see more poured concrete, that form poured concrete, but you've still got your mateline and chassis support piers all on those concrete footers. What that allows developers, builders, and retailers to do is achieve that zero entry point, which is really important in markets such as Arizona, New Mexico, Colorado, and California. And then you also see cross beams. In those engineering plans, there is a cross beam application. Those take the place of the chassis support piers. And that really is dependent on the performance of the builder developers or retailers and just what steel I-beams are going to cost versus mortared CMU from a mason. This video is actually from Overland Park, Kansas. This is the homes at Wolf Creek. This is a completed cross-mod development. And this is a video time lapse of the first half of a 79 unit cross-mod development going in. So you see there, the homes are being brought in, foundations are being built out. As those foundations are built out, those homes are crane set. This builder averaged a cycle time of 60 days, footers to finish. And definitely it's a fantastic development. They've always got open doors. So if you're ever in Kansas City, highly suggest you checking out the homes at Wolf Creek. We'll move on to roller sets. This is actually at New Durham Estates in Western Indiana. So this is the nation's first single section cross mod home. It was featured and displayed at HUD's Innovative Housing Showcase last fall on the National Mall in Washington, D.C. And then it was transported to its final home. But here you see the roller set that we mentioned earlier in place and in action. So again, that set crew, they're using hand cranks to crank that home onto the foundation, and then it is lowered. So that's what I've got. And again, permanent foundations, we see these more prevalent in modern manufactured homes. Again, buyers, families, individuals looking for homes, even at our retail level, they're changing. So most of these families love the idea of a permanent foundation, which definitely can speak to the importance of chassis removal in the future. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Andrew. Um, Next, I want to introduce Jarrett Sullivan. Jared is the general manager for Quartz Properties, and among other things, focuses on end-to-end customer experience, what he calls turnkey installation. He's working to reduce the intimidation factor that homebuyers often face and to simplify the process from delivery through final set. For Jared, installation isn't just a technical challenge, it's a customer service and process design challenge. His time lapse will illustrate what a streamlined customer centered approach can look like. Jared, it's all yours.
Thank you, Erica. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Jared Sullivan. I'm the general manager for Quartz Transport. We work for a larger company called Quartz Properties, a modular developer, all based out of Asheville, North Carolina. I'll just start my presentation here. I'm just going to go over, like Erica said, get into the setup a little bit, try to explain a typical chassis setup and the end-to-end turnkey installation process. Some different methods. I have a couple videos, kind of talk about our team a little bit, technology that we use, and current challenges. Just in the bare basics of a setup, I mean, this kind of walks through the different pieces of it. It starts with transporting the home and getting permits and ideally staging the home on site in advance of a setup day. And then the actual setup of the home itself involves spotting the home on the site, raising the home up. We have dedicated special machines that are just for manufactured homes, and then building piers with the CMU blocks, caps, wedges, and then leveling the home so we know it's a nice and level. And then if it's a double wide home, you're connecting two home sections together, and you got to connect them at the marriage lines on the walls, the ceilings, and the floors, as well as the vapor barrier application. So just a high level look at the setup. There really aren't that many other moving pieces involved. On a high level, this is what is technically called a manufactured home setup. Now, regarding the actual end-to-end installation process, this is usually where people tend to get intimidated, whether you're a customer or a dealer or somebody that's developing. There's a lot of moving parts and a lot of moving pieces, but overall, this is the process. It all starts with a good site evaluation and a site plan, an aerial map, and an operational plan. You really, from the start, you really need a good plan, a good aerial, understanding where your utilities are and where the home is, exactly where the home is going. It's not just helpful for the installer, but also helpful for the other contractors as well too. So we start with a site evaluation, and with that information, we can put together RFQs that go out to our contractors and put together a quote that goes to our customer, and a contract. And then once we get a signed contract, we pull permits, zoning permits, building permits, environmental health permits, and then we are able to start on the site preparation. And then we do the setup, which I just mentioned before, and I have a couple of videos I'll show in a second is here as well. Once the home is set up and anchored down to the ground, you can proceed with the utility connections and then the decks and the skirting to finish the home off. We usually do a walkthrough before the final inspection, just several checkpoints, make sure we're on pace and the quality is up to speed. And there's a final inspection. Once you get your certificate of occupancy, that gives you the green light to flip the switch to turn on the power with the power company. And we also do backfilling and put some seed and sod down if you need to. And then do a final cleanup up of the house once you have power and water on inside the unit there. So truly our company covers all of this from start to finish, and that's why it's called turnkey. So I'm going to try to blow this up a little bit. This is a look at everything I just talked about, kind of more in a linear fashion. Sorry, I'm not able to blow it up, but it starts with the site evaluation and flows to the right here, and it's each of those pieces I was just talking about. But here's the permitting, grading, site prep, home setup, MEPs, inspections, decks, skirting, just all the way through the finish. It makes it look pretty simple when you look at it like this, but there's certainly a lot of moving pieces. But you absolutely need a schedule, along the way in advance, a proactive schedule, so the dependencies and what's coming next, and a good order to go through everything. And back to just setting up the home. Um, there's a few different ways that we've typically set homes. That the typical way is with poured footers and block piers, and using our machines to lift the home up. And like Andrew was just talking about, there's crane sets. If we're a lot of times in Western North Carolina, we're dealing with homes that are impacted by Hurricane Helene, and they're in a flood zone or a floodplain, and they need to be higher than 36 inches off the ground, and require a crane to lift the home and get engineered footers and an engineered foundation. And we'd use a crane to set those homes. Cribbing is another method that we've had to do. I have a picture coming up here, but basically, if you can't get a crane to a job site when we're in the mountains, some job sites are pretty far back off the road, and there's trees and power lines. So if you can't access a site, but you need it very high off the ground, cribbing is a method. And then helical pylons is another interesting, newer way to set homes on these engineered pylon systems that act as the piers. And then there's what I call the old way to set homes. Prior to the use of machines, having to use hand hydraulic jacks to lift the home up, and a little bit of what Andrew was saying there with the rail system. This is a little different. It's more for connecting double wides together, a similar rail system, but literally just pushing the home sections together without machines. All right, so touching on cribbing, this is an example of what cribbing is. It's very basic, but it's very safe as well too. You're literally building up these wooden blocks to lift the home up off the ground. And then here's the helical pylons, which are really interesting. It's basically just these steel, they're called pylons, but they're almost like anchors that go straight into the ground and attach to the I-beam underneath the home there. Their cost is an issue here for why you don't see these more widespread in the industry, but they sure are very interesting. I'll say that it's pretty, maybe 10 years from now, things will be cheaper and they'll be more prevalent, but I think you see those more on the coast than anywhere else. All right, so here's a time-lapse video of a typical setup for us. This is a double-wide home, and we just got the first section set, and we're preparing to bring in the second home section here. Unwrapping the home is what's happening now. And here's where we're using our machine to bring the homes together, essentially. There's another viewpoint. Bring it in there. It's quite surgical, believe it or not. You got these big machines and this big home, but it is down to the inch for precision there, getting it lined up and the same height there. This is a water level here. It's actually what we're using to make sure the home is level. This is a platypus machine. It's actually what lifts up the home along with the tug, which is attached to the tongue in the front here. Next video I have here is a crane set. And this just shows you, we have the piers are built in advance, engineered with rebar and poured concrete. And again, precision is everything, where you actually do the leveling in advance to make sure all your piers are level. And it's actually quite easy on set day. Like Andrew was saying, you could do a couple of these in a day. You're just lining it up and dropping it down. So if you did all the hard work of making your piers correctly and they're all level, you're good to go on set day. And here's an example of anchoring into the ground here. This is in Boone, North Carolina. You're dealing with some really dense soil, and you have to use this machine to drive anchors into the ground. It's very labor intensive. These are two very strong guys in our crew, and they still struggle to get in there. But that anchor's not going anywhere. It's an interesting process there. So essentially, back to the setup, you're putting the home up on the piers, but you really need to attach it to the ground and tie it to the ground, and that's what the anchoring is doing here. So that home is not moving anywhere. Next, I have want to dedicate a little time just talking about our team and the team in general. Just looking at the industry as a whole. It's so important to have a loyal team, and a hardworking team. And I take pride in our crew and our workers, and our methods for hiring people, and making sure, really just having clear goals for everyone and performance measures. And don't be afraid to hire people that don't have experience, because that's almost my preference, honestly, when we're hiring people, is to hire people without experience so we can train and develop them our ways. It's a lot easier than hiring somebody that has 10 years of experience and having them kind of adapt to a new way of thinking on things. So we're not opposed to hiring and developing people without experience, and really show them this can be a career with some upward mobility as well too. But having visibility for your employees is important. Just what is the path? What are the goals and metrics for themselves and for the company as a whole? I think is important to get some buy-in from people. And technology is another big piece of the puzzle. We're very scientific, I guess you could say, with going back to that end-to-end installation process with all those moving parts there. We have a nice clear system for the schedule of work that has to get done, and then metrics and benchmarks to analyze how long does an electric connection take, and how long should it take? What's the benchmark, and how long did it actually take? So we have the ability with technology to analyze all the individual pieces involved in the process there. Plus, just so much more. Our technology is very robust. We have the ability to send out RFQ quotes to all of our contractors to get bids back, and then awarding POs to our contractors, scheduling all of the work that needs to be done, ordering inspections, sending out communication and photos as well to customers. We can all do that automated in our system, where once you set the home, somebody that's on the set can take a couple pictures. We can upload that into our system and send that out. So proactive communication is a big thing for us with our customers. And then really, like I said, the site evaluation just in general is the backbone of preparing our quotes to send out, understanding the scope of work for the job, and it's the operational plan. It's something that we trust and we stand behind and follow throughout the entire process. It's really the most important piece of the puzzle, is having a good operational plan. So if you're working with somebody who's installing homes, they really should have that up front, have it all planned out, because you can plan it all out up front. So some frustrations and challenges that we've come across along the way, having to do with permitting, lending, and inspections. Permitting, I think the big thing, we primarily work in North Carolina and South Carolina, but every county is different, as you know. That's no surprise. But some counties almost try to hide the schedule or their methodologies for how they want you to go about with the installation process and the inspection process. Other counties are quite nice, where you can actually get a nice checklist and schedule. So some of the challenges are those counties that you don't get information. You really have to pry it out of the local offices to get that information. Also, lack of collaboration between departments is a challenge sometimes. It just affects timing with things, where you're bouncing from one group in the zoning department to the building department, and kicking back, and they don't work together. It's just there are different silos sometimes, which is a challenge. And then on the lending side of things, not too many challenge honestly, but I have noticed a trend recently where we put in a lot of work and put together a site evaluation and get a quote out to customers, and then with that quote, that's what a lender essentially needs for a homeowner to prepare their final loan amount. And we come to find that just the loan didn't go through. They didn't qualify for it. So just seeing that a little bit more and more. Another common occurrence is just with septic and well. It's the chicken before the egg kind of thing. Lenders typically, they want to see a contract, but it's very difficult to contract on septic and well before they actually get installed. Septic is truly up to the county, the local authority having jurisdiction for what those requirements are for septic. So we don't quote septic unless we know the requirements from the county. And well, you just never know how far you're going to need to, what it's going to cost in advance until you actually get out there and frack and drill and see how far you're going. It could be 50 feet, it could be 350 feet. And that drastically affects the price there. So, and lastly, inspections. Just among, not just, between counties and different departments at the local authority having jurisdiction, but temperaments of inspectors. You see some variability there. Every day is different. We also see lately too as well, more understaffed inspection agencies and inspectors. They're taking longer. Inspections take longer, and then if we fail an inspection, which doesn't happen too often, but if we do, sometimes you get some poor feedback for why it actually failed. What's the remedy? Is not always included with that. And so our slogan really is and the advantages of turnkey is when you have a home that is being ordered, if you get a footer diagram, if you give us the diagram for the footers, we'll give you the keys at the end. That's pretty much our motto for everything. So just in general, the advantages of turnkey are transparency, communication, professionalism, and expertise. With skilled and experienced people. One point of contact is a large advantage. Just working with one company, one point of contact. Organized, systematic operations is, like I've talked about, having a plan in place, often helpful. And another large advantage is just the predictability of the costs and the schedule as well too. If you are working with somebody who gives you a quote up front for everything, you can predict all of your costs very easily. I can predict all of my costs, and then the schedule of work is very achievable as well too. And some disadvantages, as you can tell, is really just the opposite of the advantages. But juggling with 12 plus different contractors for each of the different scopes of work becomes very challenging and difficult, and as well as inspections on top of that. And it's a lot of work to manage all that. I think is kind of what Erica was touching on. It's intimidating for home buyers. Just finding contractors is difficult. We have a good Rolodex of contractors, and no matter where you are, there seems to be continuing trends in labor shortages and difficulty in staffing for contractors. It's a challenge just to find contractors. And if you can find contractors, the bigger challenge is finding reliable contractors who work on time and do what they say they were going to do. And then lastly, about ports, transport, and install. Like I said, we're in Asheville last year. Hurricane Helene was greatly impacted the area there. We did 100 installations in the Asheville area for people that were impacted by the hurricane. One of our greater accomplishments happened. We were the first installation through the state of North Carolina, and from demolition, starting with demolition to getting a CO in the home on the very first job. There's a lot of eyes and visibility on it, but we did the entire installation in 26 hours, from destroying that old home that was damaged from the storm to getting a CO. It was probably something we'll never do again, but I think one of our greatest accomplishments. In general, our turn times are about 35 days from setting up the home to getting the CO in the homes. In about a month, we're opening a second location in Florence, South Carolina. So we're in Asheville, and that really gives us coverage of the entire state of North Carolina and South Carolina. Additional future locations, vetted contractors. Like I said, we spent a lot of time working and building good relationships with contractors as well. And then we're always improving. You can just tell from what I was talking about with the technology. We're always analyzing ourselves, looking in the mirror, and making ourselves better and making our processes faster and more efficient, and lowering costs as well too. And that's pretty much it. Here's my information, and thank you for the opportunity. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Jarrett. That was great. I'd like to introduce Steve Eaton. He is from Zero Energy Homes, a modular builder in Maine, and he brings a performance and energy lens to installation, including solar arrays, near passive home standards, and innovation innovative foundation solutions designed for a wide range of price points and climates. So, Zero Energy Home has been doing some particularly interesting work on foundation alternatives, including a precast concrete crawl space solution at roughly a quarter of the cost of a full basement, an insulated fiberglass panel floor system that addresses moisture resistance across a wide range of applications. So, Steve, I'm going to hand it over to you.
Thank you, Erica. Thank you everyone for the opportunity to introduce Zero Energy Homes. We are a startup in Maine. We are on home build number 5 now, just starting, and have very ambitious plans as we move forward. We are true to our name. We build our homes to a net zero standard, which means every home is fitted with a solar array that is sized to the occupant's energy needs. But what that does mean is out of the box, the home is self-sustaining and will provide all of its own electricity and heat, which in the great state of Maine can be a really nice benefit. We focus on local materials to the absolute degree possible. We're fortunate to be in the state of Maine where there is kind of a robust timber and housing products market. So our first build, 84% of the materials and labor that went into the home were sourced right in the state of Maine. And one other thing that sets us apart is we are an employee co-op. So we have employee ownership, and that's something that is near and dear to us as a company. We've chosen, because we are building to a net zero standard, we've chosen kind of a home product and design that is obviously very well insulated, is thermally tight. We manage our penetrations through the thermal envelope very carefully, and of course have our solar array with every home. This is the demonstration home, and I'll show a time lapse of this being built. This was in Searsport, Maine, so just on the coast, kind of south from Bangor. Our builds today are predominantly panelized. Here you can see a home that is panelized and ready to ship. We ship our panels in a partially insulated condition. So I've shown a wall cross section here on the right, but we use a double stud wall with a 1.5 inch either mineral board or press fiber board thermal break. And the inner cavity is left open to do rough-in plumbing and electrical, and then the inner cavity does get insulation as well. The walls achieve an R34. The rafters in the roof achieve an R51. Our main-based supply chain, again, we are very fortunate to be in a state that has a very robust home building market. I've had an opportunity to visit most of these suppliers along the way. Our windows, for instance, come and are built inside of the state of Maine. Quite a few lumber yards, as you would expect. And just recently, we invested in a modular manufacturing facility. So our third home that we built, we contract manufactured and had a company with a modular license build that home for us so we could pilot a modular process. But I think most people on this call will understand that there are greater efficiencies that can be had the more of the work you can do inside of the factory, which is why we're very keen to move to full volumetric modular later this year, and all of that is ongoing now. Inside of this facility, as Eric also mentioned, we'll be precasting stem wall foundations that have a footer, and we're envisioning a 2-foot stem wall off of that footer that will be cast and shipped, cast in the facility and shipped to site and set on the same day that the home is set. And if I exit out of this and bring up my video, hopefully this comes through okay. What we have here is last March, so about a year ago now. This is in Searsport, Maine. We had the foundation set. In this case, we've done the sills, put put the lally columns in place, and this is kind of a time lapse of the day where we have the crane coming in. The crane will offload. We have two trailers worth of panels. These panels, in total, there were 18 panels. Here you see some of the exterior walls. We have gable ends, floor system panels here being installed. And then there are some interior walls as well, which you'll see dropped in here. Overall, this was built. This home was set on site in a day, similar to what Jared and Andrew have said. We have got this set down to half a day and can set two homes in a day using this method. Or if we went to the full volumetric modular, we should be able to get to three, maybe even a fourth home set in a day if they're in the same location. Here we have the ceiling segments being put on, and then there's a quick lunch, and then we'll get going with. We bring in the background, we're bringing in a second trailer that has the gable ends and then the roof system. In this case, the roof, we do use a rafter system with collar ties. So you'll see the rafters being lifted into place. Next, there are six ceiling roof segments. There's one of them there. And then one of the last things they'll do is set the collar ties to tie it all together. We will ship panels with the windows installed. In this case, the windows were not ready on set day, so we had those windows installed right after that. And then I'll go ahead and show, if it's okay with everyone, I'll show one other quick video here. This is our modular set. This was in Trenton, Maine, a little farther up the coast, closer to Bar Harbor. This is where we hired a company to build for us the same layout of home. This is a 28 by 32 Cape style home. But in this case, take our designs and build it as our first modular. And this was our proof of concept for modular. So this was done under another company's modular license, which you can see the first box being placed here. Second box comes in, and then we use the same roof design as you saw with the panels in Searsport, where we'll bring in the gable ends and then we'll bring in the roof sections. Here we also tried to do some of the to apply some of the roofing materials to the panels before they were being set. We didn't find at the end of the day that ended up saving us time. So I believe this will be the only house we'll do that way. But you can see there the roof panels are partially installed with asphalt shingles here. And this set was done in about half a day. So right now we are only working in the state of Maine, although our facility that we have recently acquired, it's 18,000 square feet. And we believe that is just the right size of facility to support a geographic region and potentially export that size of facility and be able to set more of those up around the country as opportunities develop. That 18,000 square foot facility, we expect to be able to take one home of this size, basically two completed full volumetric modular boxes out of that home per week. So basically one home a week or 50 homes a year out of that facility. And what they're working on right now is this home buyer specified a mudroom. So they're just attaching a mudroom now to the side of the building. As you can imagine, building this offsite creates, especially in Maine and in places in the country where weather can be very unpredictable, there's quite an efficiency to building all of these panels offsite, and then in one day just setting them all on site. Like I said, in this case, it was about half a day. Right now, they're just stacking up the trailers, and then the crane will leave. Last note here, this home, our demo home, again, it's 28 by 32 Cape style home. One thing we really like about this design home is this home will grow with the home buyers' families. So it starts as a 2-bed, 1-bath, but because we have a 10-12 roof pitch, there is ample headroom up in the attic space. In the attic space, because the insulation is out to the rafters, is already conditioned space inside of the thermal envelope of the home. So we have designs of this home that takes it to a 4-bed, 2-bath, or a 3-bed, 2-bath, depending on what suits the home buyer's needs. I think I will stop there.
Great. Thank you, Steve. Thank you, Andrew and Jared as well. What we've just seen across three very different lenses is that installation is far more than a logistical step, and it's where design meets intent. Um, it also kind of reflects a real variations in region and market. And that's where we want to start digging in. We've had some great questions come in. I'm going to go with the first one of them because I think a, more than just a few people had a question about um, the home that was cited, Jared, that you showed that was elevated. Could you go into a little bit about why it was cited on the piers so high?
Yeah, absolutely. You're exactly right. That was a floodplain home. It was designated in the floodplain, and it has a marker. It has to be at least, I think it was 7 or 8 feet off of the ground. So anything under that would not pass inspections and get a certificate of occupancy. So you have to get that height to after a flood survey. That's the marker determined. That's the height of the home there. So when you're that high off the ground, that it greatly changes things. The code, basically in North Carolina said that, if you're over 36 inches for a certain, for a certain amount of the home height, you need an engineer, a structural engineer to design the plan. So those were engineered design plans that require poured concrete and rebar and engineered footers as well too and like I said, they were built in advance as well too. So come on the set day, we're literally just lifting the home up and putting it on top of the those engineered piers that are built in advance. But yeah, that's I wouldn't call that overly common, but if you're in a floodplain, it most certainly is going to be common.
Okay. Um, So the other question that kind of I'm sure is front and center for a lot of folks is we saw settings that seem to be a little more either existing subdivisions or in rural areas or areas where there might have been a little more room to maneuver, even if they were on a steep mountainous area. Could you address a little bit of the challenges? And I'm going to turn to you, Jared, or Steve, um, or Andrew, whichever wants to answer about the challenges of infill.
I can touch on infill if that's all right. So,
Yeah,
you know,
please.
so we'll use a couple of examples here, different parts of the country. We've done some urban infill projects in, again, downtown Atlanta, and also Kansas City, the Clam Park neighborhood that is underway right now with several different developers as they're revitalizing those neighborhoods. So one thing you have to think about is your transport. Transporting in inner cities is a little different. So your permitting with the DOTs vary. You also have to have traffic control because if you are setting these homes, oftentimes those homes are being prepped in the roads. So you've got to have traffic control. We might have to shut a street down for a few hours while we bring the crane in and get those homes set as quickly and precisely as possible. But again, offsite construction, whether it be HUD coded, modern manufactured homes or the cross mods or modular, really they have an application anywhere in rural settings, which come with their own challenges, mountainsides, country lanes, trees. So really having just a professional and experienced set crew that knows how to traverse all of those things. I thought Jarrett did a great job of talking about, assessing the site before we get the home to the site. It's not a day of process. It's playing that offense, whether it's an urban infill setting, a suburban, where you might be flying half of a home over an existing neighbor's home. But again, an experienced crew that already has a plan of action is key.
Okay, great. Some other questions that we received centered around the chassis and how do requirements around the foundation and anchoring and permanent chassis create challenges in zoning, financing, or approvals? I don't know. Once again, Andrew.
Sure. So when you look at a chassis, broad zoning exclusions of manufactured housing often block today's homes by definition, regardless of the foundation type, design, or financing parity. Zoning frameworks that focus on permanence, performance, and compatibility allow modern manufactured homes to be built alongside site-built homes. Um, Modern manufactured homes today built on a permanent chassis, it's a component that's needed for transportation, but it's not part of that permanent home structure. So removing the chassis requirement from the HUD code provides an option to build a manufactured home to the HUD code without a steel frame. And what that does is it unlocks more innovation and it scales that attainable housing supply throughout the country. Because when you can do a 2-story home with a chassis. We're actually working on a project with a builder in California. Your top floor is heavier. It takes a lot more engineering, a lot more shear calculations. But when we remove that chassis, modern manufactured homes built to the federal HUD code can now be built much more efficiently and affordably, 2 stories. And I think you talk about urban infill, you've got these skinny lots. And imagine, a single section cross mod, 2 stories. That would be a game changer. And again, those builder developers, retailers, they would be able to pass the savings along to that customer.
Great. So I'm going to turn to you, Jarrett, and ask, based on what we've discussed, what aspects of installation are the most misunderstood by policymakers, regulators, and others?
That's a good question. I would say really just that the customer aspect from their lens, the intimidation factor. I think the cost as well too. For adapting to cost based off of policy and just just generally overlooking. I think the things looking at things from the viewpoint of the customer and really the fear of the unknowns that customers have and the responsibility of going through an installation or the feeling of going through the responsibility of the installation on your own, I think is something that's overlooked. There's not that much help, I guess, if you're going to a local county office to understand the process and get that information.
Great, thank you. And then, Steve, are there elements of the installation process that you think are consistently, maybe the guidance or current standards might be oversimplified for what's actually needed?
Yeah, so there's a few aspects of the installation process that we spend the most time considering. First and foremost is the size and width of the boxes or the panels that we're building. Each state has its own DOT guidelines on what is how an oversized load is defined and permitted inside of the states. Maine is a little more generous than some of our neighbors in transporting these units. So we will go up to 16 feet wide, and can go as wide as 18 feet inside of the state of Maine. So that's one aspect. So far, we have only installed using cranes. You saw our panels. The panels can be set with telehandlers instead of cranes, and there's a cost efficiency there. Telehandlers for certain sites may have better access to the home if you're building on a site with a lot of elevation change or some other conditions that just make smaller equipment a little bit better. So those are a couple of the pieces that we will consider as we're building out our plans for our next home.
Great, thank you. I saw that a few of our questions you guys have been busy answering while we've been on the call, which is great multitasking. But if you could give some examples where some of the disconnects in the guidance and what's actually needed to ensure these homes are safely connected and installed, have led to increased cost or challenges in using them, that would be great. Maybe Jarrett?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I can't think of too many increased costs. I mean, if from the start, it really goes back to that operational plan and following the state code. I mean, we have very few change orders, which we take pride in. I think just the ability to get it right the first time. I think when you deal with multiple contractors, you're going to run into more variability and change orders, and not everyone being in sync with each other. But so not a ton of additional costs that come up just with your typical manufactured home turnkey installation that I can think of.
Great. We're getting towards the end, so I want to try to get a few other questions in. But if we take a look at what we've heard today, what would better the alignment between installation, practice, and policy? And what would you see as the outcomes of that? I think that would be a good way to kind of wrap it up. So we
I
can start
think.
with Andrew or Steve. Steve, you're starting.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I was
Keep
just going to
going.
jump right in. I think I think Jarrett covered some of this in his presentation, but the application of housing standards in different municipalities is maybe always going to be a bit of a frustration, and it's the number of times I've had to have simple discussions like where do you measure a winder staircase from? Is something that folks are you receive different answers on depending on who you're talking with, and that's just a continued source of frustration inside from this side of the industry. The other one it was also brought up, but on the lending side, one thing that we've been disappointed to find is that qualifying for like a construction loan to build one of these homes can take some home buyers out of some other programs that are set up to support like first-time home buyer benefits. So, first-time home buyer benefits can go away if you get a construction loan. All of a sudden, you're kind of disincentivizing some products here that we're trying hard to bring to market. So those are a couple that are kind of fresh in my mind right now.
Andrew, you want to add
Sure.
anything to that?
I mean, really, it all comes back to scaling obtainable housing supply. So I think it starts with webinars like this. If we can demystify the installation process while aligning processes that would bolster offsite construction, whether it be modern manufactured homes or modular homes, we could provide more scalable, real options to today's housing market. From Montana, Darby, Montana, we've got a development there. We're working with a builder. The average price point of a home is over $700,000, and he's able to provide homes in the 400s. So that delta there, that is the answer. But again, I think it starts with education and again, playing offense, demystifying and raising the comfort level that these are professional crews. They are licensed. we are heavily regulated as an offsite construction industry. And that's where it's got to start. And again, as those walls continue to fall down, then offsite construction is a realistic or a solution to attainable housing.
Great. Thank you. Well, we're at 1 o'clock, top of the hour. And as we wrap up, I want to step back and recognize what today's conversation represents. Installation is not a peripheral issue in factory built housing, it's foundational. And the choices made during and around installation shape a home's performance, family's financial security, and a community's willingness to welcome this type of housing. And I'm Home is committed to making sure that the policy conversation catches up with the technical and market realities our panelists described today. So I want to thank you, Steve, Jared, and Andrew. To our audience, thank you also for attending. And a few things we would like to point out to you is that check out our recently published blog post on chassis removal. Today's recording and materials will be circulated to the registrants. And if you're interested in going deeper on any of these issues, I'd encourage you to explore the I'm Home conference that's going to be held in Detroit this year, September 16th and 17th. We're also accepting proposals for sessions. There'll be a site visit to an urban infill using both manufactured and modular. So thank you again, everyone, including the entire Lincoln and I'm Home team for making this happen. Take care, everyone.